Now we are moving to the second workshop. This is a workshop based on cyber forensic. Cyber forensic is a branch of digital forensic science, the application of investigation and analysis techniques to gather and preserve evidence from a particular computing device in a way that is suitable for presentation in a court of law. The workshop is all about on how to conduct a digital forensic investigation, learn how to do a forensically sound disk acquisition and analysis using open source tools, importing concepts and fundamental principles in forensics and how to apply them in practice, which includes details about digital forensic toolkit, disk forensics, phases of digital forensics, ensuring forensic soundness, write blockers, types of hard disk, acquiring disk image, validating the image, examining and analyzing disk images, generating report. This workshop will be handled by Vipin and he is a cyber forensicator, worked at Kerala Police Academy as a cyber forensic consultant after a brief stint as a lecturer of cyber forensics and InfoSec at MG University. He has more than decades experience in systems engineering and computer networks and holds MTech in cyber forensics and InfoSec. He was a team leader of Indian Space Research Organization Network Intrusion Detection System project at Smart India Hackathon Finals 2017. He actively volunteers his time as a core team member of Mozilla Kerala community. He has good experience in dealing with training and practice of law enforcement, judicial and police officers on digital forensics, cybercrime analysis, information security, malware forensic procedures. Now I leave the platform to Mr. Vipin, and Vipin, it's all yours.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Am I audible?
Yes, Vipin, you are audible. Good to go.
Thank you. I have been introduced well, and by the way, I do have a ham radio license as well, and its call sign goes by Victor Uniform 3 Yankee Victor Golf, and I do enjoy tinkering with Internet of Things and kind of hardware, tinkering boards. Okay, today's workshop is about cyber forensics. I hope all of you are excited to be a part of this workshop. Our agenda is as follows. We will be dealing with what digital forensics is, then the fundamentals of digital forensics, then we will see how we will capture and preserve the evidence so that it can be placed in a proper authority, it can be put forward in a proper way so that it can be presented in a court of law. We will see how a forensic imaging is done, the forensic image acquisition process. Then we will see the list of softwares that with which we can do the acquisition process, and then we will do an analysis with the free and open source software called Autopsy. We will be wondering how we will be doing all these things online. Don't worry, we will be making through each steps in a proper way so that you could also follow these procedures. For that, I request you to please go to the Discord channel and download all the necessary files needed for the workshop. By the time that the theory part is complete, we'll be able to do the hands-on with the downloaded software. So if anyone is attending this session on YouTube, let me show you the link to, okay, let me show you the link to the resources. Okay. If you're attending this session on YouTube, please go to this link so that you could download the essential software that are needed in the second part of this session. I have left the link in the chat box as well. Okay. Okay, let's move on to the session. Here I have talked about two things. Okay, one is about digital forensics, and then I was saying that always saying that introduction to forensic imaging, then introduction to the forensic image acquisition process, then acquiring images with FTK imager light, and analyzing images with autopsy. What are all these images? Are these the ordinary images or the other kind of images? What are these images? These are not the photos that we usually capture using our mobile phones or digital camera. These are the exact copies of the original source media. If it is a CD, the old contents of the CD. And if it is a hard disk, the old contents of the hard disk. And if it is a floppy, the entire contents of the floppy. That is the meaning of this imaging process. And we will see how this process is done. I'll just let you have an intro about all these things. Okay, consider this hard disk. This is a hard disk, and we need to make a forensic copy of this hard disk. If we make a forensic copy of this hard disk, we can have it in two ways. We can have it as an image, or we can have that hard disk copied to one another hard disk, and that is called cloning. So there are two ways. We can have an image which contains all the contents of the hard disk, and we can have an exact replica of the hard disk. There are mainly two ways of creating a forensic copy of the hard disk. So we will see what is being imaged. We are saying that being imaged and copied. The imaging process will copy sector by sector of that hard disk, and it will place that in a file or in a similar hard disk that I have shown in the previous slide. It is a bit by bit copy. In a hard disk, there are different parameters. We will see all those parameters in detail. But for this introduction part, this much amount of information is only necessary. A sector by sector copy, it will be an exact replica of the original hard disk if it is a hard disk. Usually, the hard disk will be having a sector of 512 bytes in size. Okay, let's move on to the little bit of theory part. Okay, what is digital forensics? The formal definition goes like this: the gathering and analysis of digital information in an authentic, accurate, and complete form for presentation as an evidence in a court of law. All these words have definite significance in forensics. Let's see in the following slides. And by the way, any electronic device can be the source of evidence. It may be an MP3 player, it may be a GPS device, it may be a hard disk, mobile phone, or a drone, or any other kind of electronic device can be an evidence. Usually, the digital forensics has been used as a reactive measure. After an incident has been happened, we will be calling the forensic expert to conduct the digital forensic investigation. That's the case with the court cases and the incident response stages. But nowadays, there are proactive steps that are being made. That means we are continuously monitoring in a forensically sound way. So if an incident happens, we can have all the data so that it can be analyzed. Okay, these are the sub branches of digital forensics. The first thing, the storage or disk forensics, that we are going to deal with in this workshop. And there is memory forensics. It is a very interesting field, that memory forensics. From memory forensics, we can get a lot of information. And one another interesting thing is network forensics. We'll be capturing the network data, and we'll be extracting files and all. And the fourth one is mobile forensics, which includes the other device for as well. That means drones and all those IoT devices. Also, those can be collectively called device forensics. Okay, then we will be moving on to the next slide, and we'll see why are we conducting this investigation. We are trying to answer these questions: who has done the particular operation, what has been done, and when the crime was done, and where was it done, and why was it done, and how is it done. We will be trying to answer all these questions. Once we answer all these questions, it will be helpful for the investigation. If we can answer all these questions or a part of these questions, it will be helping that particular case, and it will be helping to solve the case, and sometimes it may act as a key evidence in a particular case. Nowadays, there are no crime scenes without a digital device. Almost every crime scene has a digital device, as not a single device, many devices. So it is very important to have a digital forensic expert to have the evidence, to seize the evidence and collect it in a proper forensically sound manner. Like in every operation, preparation is the key to success. And as an incident responder, we have to be prepared to collect the digital evidence as soon as an event is reported. So we have to be prepared all the time. We don't know when the event will happen, and it is necessary to properly train an incident response team. Otherwise, it will be much tiresome to have all the evidence captured by the forensic expert himself. So it is very important to have a team of people who will train themselves and who will train other people, and to develop solutions that can be implemented in a crime scene. So I have told that we have to be prepared. What all things has to be prepared? We need to have a list of tools ready, and the kit has to be ready to be used at all times. And we have to ensure that we are properly trained on how to use them. That's why I told in the previous slide that we have to train ourselves. So whenever we are having free time, we should familiarize with these forensic tools and make sure that we are familiar with the standard operating procedures and all. I'll explain all the hardware things in this shown in this picture. There are a lot of things. This is a portable toolkit that we will use to carry to a crime scene. This portable toolkit contains all the necessary and essential hardware to conduct a forensic investigation. So I have told you that we need to be prepared. The first and foremost thing, one of the foremost things, is to prepare a hard disk. We need to save the content to a hard disk. And for forensic acquisition, we have to make sure that the hard disk that we are using is free from any other content. So essentially, it is said that we have to wipe the hard disk to ensure that we have a known state. That means the hard disk has to be in a deterministic state. It should not be in an undeterministic state. So whenever possible, it is better to use a fresh hard disk out of the factory than to use a previously used hard disk, because the previously used hard disk may have some information left on the hard disk, and that may affect the further investigation process. There is a procedure called wiping, forensically sound wiping procedure, but it is ideal to use a fresh hard disk for acquisition. And the next important thing is to build a trusted toolkit. Trusted toolkit. The word is particular. It is trusted toolkit. We don't have to prepare a toolkit, simply a toolkit, but we should be preparing a trusted toolkit. That means our software that we use should be downloaded from the authentic website, and the origin of that software should be verified. If you are using a software that is malware infected to collect an evidence, that evidence itself will not be valid. So we have to ensure that we are using a trusted toolkit, and we have to make list of all the items in the toolkit. Even if we are going to a crime scene, if the person who is using that computer is well advanced, he may have infected that system with a malware. So if you're typing in a dir command in a command prompt, it may wipe the hard disk. So the cardinal rule is that never trust the victims or the criminal system. We should be using our own binary files, and we should always carry them in the portable toolkit. Okay, And by the way, feel free to interrupt me at any time. And if you have any questions, please do ask in the Discord channel or in the other part that I have shared. Okay. So an incident happens, and we have to contain that incident. We have to make sure that if a system is malware infected or maybe a ransomware, we have to isolate it from the other systems and make sure that the other systems are also not affected. But we have to do all these things without affecting the content of the original system. So whenever we are arriving at a crime scene, the first thing that we should do is that we have to photograph the scene. Then it's better to photograph the screen as well of the system. And we can identify on the screen, you could see a crime scene. Okay, here, there may be a portable hard disk. There is a headphone that may be paired with a Bluetooth. And there may be thumb drives or something around. We have to inspect the crime scene properly. Then what else? You have to inspect the crime scene properly. Sometimes on the keyboard slider, somebody might have written the username and password of the system. There are software that can break the password. But if you are getting the password in an easy way, it will save a lot of time. Hope you have seen, all of you interested in cybersecurity have seen the movie War Games. I got this screenshot from the War Games movie. It's a very interesting one. Okay, I would suggest you to watch this. Okay, and don't get any ideas from it. Okay, so it is very essential to do the crime scene evaluation first. Even if it's a digital crime scene, we have to scan the premises and make note of everything. It's better to photograph the things and interview the users and ask them questions about how often they use systems and all. It is very important, and this is the most overlooked fact, I suppose. There has been an event in the history. It happened in 1972, one of the earliest. It cannot be called an absolute cyber crime, but we can call it as a computer crime. There used to be a computer called Burroughs B3500, and from 1970 to 1972, it has survived 56 hard disk head crashes. That means in those days, hard disks were much costly, and they had to replace the hard disk 56 times, and the expenditure has been $5 million in those days. And after spending this much amount of money, the company decided to put into additional effort, and they identified the root cause of the event. They implemented a CCTV, much costly in those days, 1970s, and they caught the night shift operator. He was having a psychological problem because he was lonely at night. Night shift operator. So whenever the hard disk fails, the technicians used to come, and this person has felt that he is in good company. So he has destroyed the hard disks. So it is much important to run the interview part. And coming on to the next part, there are basically two kinds of investigation, and it can be further divided. One is that internal investigation. That means if a company's data is being stolen and that company is suspecting one of the employees, they can hire a private investigator and he can run an investigation. So he will also be doing the same procedures. And the second is that it may be a criminal or civil investigation. And the important thing is that at any point of time, an internal investigation can become an external investigation. So that means a public investigation that can become a criminal or civil investigation. So it is very important, even if you are running an internal investigation, to follow all the standard steps so that the law enforcement people could exactly collect the evidence as it was already there. So even if we have been called to conduct an internal investigation, it is essential for us to preserve the evidence, and we should not damage the evidence in any way. For doing a forensic analysis or forensic acquisition, we have to learn the basics of forensics. I have been a computer science guy. Okay, I have done my BTech in computer science and then later move on to cyber forensics. So it is very important to learn the fundamental principles of forensics. Then only we can apply the technology in a proper way so that we could acquire the evidence in a forensically sound manner. The first principle is called the Locard's exchange principle. It's a very interesting principle. We'll see into it. And the second is important thing is the order of volatility that we technical people can understand in an easy way. And the third is the documentation phase. That's chain of custody. That's one of the very important steps that we technology people will spend least time on to, but it is one of the most important thing. If chain of custody is lost, the evidence will not be accepted in a court of law. Okay, let's see what Locard's exchange principle is. Okay. Edmund Locard, he's a scientist, forensic scientist. He lived in the 19th century. He's also called the Sherlock Holmes of France. He stated that every contact leaves behind a trace. So if it is a crime scene, every contact by a criminal leaves behind a trace. This is true in the case of organic forensics. This is true also in the case of digital forensics. So what we should do, we should be very cautious at the crime scene. So we can expand the Locard's exchange principle to the digital forensic crime scene, and we can state that Locard's exchange principle like this. Whenever two computers come into contact and interact, they exchange something from each other, and the evidence of that communication can be found in both of the devices, and how we approach them and how we issue commands to view the log files and all. So this is the fundamental principle of forensics. And next we can move on to the volatility factor. We know that data is volatile on a computer system. One of the most volatile data on a computer system is RAM, random access memory. This is the primary memory of a computer. Whenever a computer program is being executed, that program is being brought to the RAM and then it is being executed. And if you are not collecting the contents of the RAM in a timely fashion, the content will change and we may not get the content in any way. So data once lost will be lost forever. There is no way that we could reconstruct the content from the RAM. Okay, there are some questions in the Discord channel that I will address soon. We are coming on to that. Thank you. Please keep the questions coming. So we can say that the ability to retrieve or validate data after a security incident depends on where it is stored. So if it is stored on the RAM, we should collect it as soon as possible. Otherwise, we may not be able to get the data in any way. And the order of volatility is that the order in which we need to recover data after an incident before the data deteriorates or erased or is overwritten. So whenever we are approaching a computer at a crime scene, we should collect the contents of the RAM at first. Then we can collect the data from the network cache and virtual memory as well, by the way. And then we can move on to other least affected memory. Then we can image the hard disk, and then DVD is given the least priority. DVD and CDs are also always given the least priority. Okay, and whatever we do and whatever changes we make, we should always make sure that our footprint is limited. Okay, otherwise according to Locard's exchange principle, our own actions will also be recorded on the system. So if we are issuing if we are executing a memory intensive program to collect evidence, even for collecting evidence, the contents of the RAM will be lost forever. So whenever we are moving on to the incident response phases, we should be cautious to run only the essential programs that are needed to collect the evidence. We should not run a trial and error method at a crime scene. We should always practice all these things before the crime happens and whenever we are having free time, and never ever try an experimental command on a system at crime scene. So the first thing is RAM, then the next thing is network cache, then we have to collect the evidence from the hard drive. Okay, we will see the procedure whenever we are moving on to the hands-on part. Okay, the next concept is that the chain of custody. Maintain a good record of what we have done with the evidence. So it means it should record the date submitting agency. That means if it's a law enforcement agency, that is very particular. And even if it is a private investigation, that the name of the company, the date collected, time collected, the item number, case number, and who has collected the evidence, and the description of the evidence. And the description has to be extensive, because if you're collecting sometimes even from a home, we can collect 5 or 10 portable hard disks. So it has to be descriptive and properly labeled. And those documentation, we should not be skipping all those things. Okay. So it gives an idea about where has this evidence been and who had access to this evidence. That means physical access as well. And what has been done to this evidence, and has this evidence been left unattended? If this evidence is left unattended, and if this evidence chain of custody form is incomplete, the evidence could not be submitted in a court of law. The court would not be accepting an evidence without proper chain of custody. And all these things are ensuring that the evidence is not tampered. And that's why we are going through these exhaustive steps. And these are the parameters in that chain of custody form about the evidence. Okay. I have covered the theoretical and documentation part of the digital forensics part. Then now we are moving on to the technological aspects of this. Okay. The first and foremost thing, chain of custody must ensure that evidence remains unaltered. Throughout the investigation, the original evidence should always be left as unaltered, and use standardized and repeatable process and documentation. This is very important. We should be running only a repeatable process. That means if you are giving an input, we'll be getting an output. And it should always be the same in all analog point of time. And always leave the state of the target system as undisturbed as possible. We will be making a copy or forensic copy of the original hard disk or any media, and we'll be working on it. Okay, I'll show you the 7 steps in the cyber forensic investigation. The first is the identification phase. The next is the seizure and hashing. We'll see all the steps in detail, and we'll see all the necessary tools for software tools for doing this. Then there is the acquisition phase. Next is the authentication phase to ensure that the original evidence is unaltered. Then we will move on to the analysis part, then presentation part, and the preservation part. The initial steps are done at the scene of crime, identification of the evidence, and the seizure and hashing of the evidence. Then the acquisition part, authentication part, and analysis part, these all parts are done in the forensic lab. Then after running this analysis, the software tools will be able to generate a report, but we have to manually go through the report, and we have to give it with a cover letter. And then the presentation part, that we can present the evidence in a court of law, and the evidence has to be preserved for that. If there is any future references, we can refer to it. And even after some 2 or 3 years, we have to, if there is a necessity, we should be able to gather the evidence, and it should be in a proper state. So it has to be preserved in silica gel and humid free conditions and all. Okay, let's move on to the crime scene, the interesting part. The first phase is the identification. So we may feel that the identification phase, why there is any difficulty in identification phase. Actually, searching for an electronic evidence is like searching for a needle in a haystack. We don't know where to search. After arriving at a crime scene, we'll be faced with this challenge. There may be a lot of things, a lot of kinds of thumb drives. Okay, hope you can all see the thumb drives. The things that you see on the slide are thumb drives. Who would be able to identify all these things? Okay, so this is a thumb drive. This just looks like a toy, but if we are leaving a toy at the crime scene, and if it is a thumb drive, we'll be missing an important part of the evidence. So it is very important to inspect the crime scene and to learn all these kinds of new generation storage devices with these form factors. Okay, that is one of the important things. Then yeah, these are some other kinds of thumb drives. These are available on Amazon and all other places. This is not a secret. This is publicly available information, but we should be much cautious at a crime scene to collect all these kinds of evidences. Okay, and what all things we have to collect? There are different kinds of storage devices. This is the conventional hard disk that we see at a crime scene. That's 3.5-inch SATA hard disk. That means those hard disks are used inside ordinary desktop computers. Then 2.5-inch SATA hard disk. That means those are used by the laptops and all. Then 3.5-inch ID hard disk. Those are used in the olden days. There was integrated drive electronics, ID hard disk. They used a flat kind of ribbon cable for connections. And then the old laptops were using 2.5-inch ID hard disks. Nowadays, modern day laptops are having solid state drives. So there are solid state drives in all different kinds of form factors. So it is very important to collect all the evidence from a crime scene. And the SSD devices, they are having different form factors. Okay, the M.2, the modern day laptops are having this M.2 slots, and there are hard disks in very different form factors. And even if the hard disks are in all these kinds of different form factors, we are having specific forensic tools in the hardware toolkit with which we can collect all the evidence. Almost all the latest types of hard disks can be collected with this interface cables and cards. I hope I have shown you this thing. Okay, we will come into it. This is a kind of hardware with which we can connect these kinds of hard disks to our workstation, forensic workstation. And by connecting these, connecting through these dedicated adapters, we can gather the evidence. These dedicated adapters are having one another feature that we will soon look into. So even if a criminal is using all these kinds of hardware, it is possible to gather the evidence. Okay. By the way, a question, simple question, which is least affected by a virus? You can answer in the Discord channel. Or if you're having difficulty in accessing the Discord channel, you can come on to the online Ether part as well. The URL is shown above. I hope it is visible. Okay, I'm getting multiple answers. Okay, wow. Okay, there is answer disk CD, which is least affected by virus. That means all these storage devices can be affected by a virus or a ransomware or a malware, but which is least affected by the virus. Okay, there are multiple answers. We can say that the optical storage medium, CDs, are least affected by the virus because it's once written, it cannot be altered. There are ways in which we can alter the files inside a CD or DVD, but once written, usually the content of the CD or a DVD or a Blu-ray disc remains the same. So it is least affected by the virus, and hard disk and solid state memory, those are having the same fate. So a hard disk and a secondary storage device, hard disk or a pen drive or a solid state drive, those can be affected by a virus much easily. Okay, thank you. So the answer is CD or DVD or any optical storage media that will be least affected by a virus. Okay. So we'll be moving along the phases of digital forensics. The initial part is the assessment. We'll be identifying the evidence, and then we will move on to the acquisition of the evidence part. Then we will move on to the analysis part. And most of the analysis tools do have the option for creating reports. We will not be using the auto-generated reports as such, but it will be much helpful for us to use the output from the analysis software. For all these phases, there are dedicated softwares available. Okay, let's see what all things are done at each of the phases. The first phase is the identification, and as in the initial assessment. After then comes the acquisition part. Acquisition involves acquiring a copy or image of the device or the data. Sometimes it may be the complete image of the device, or sometimes it may be the data. And it is very important, always mount the evidence in read-only mode. We have to ensure that the evidence is not altered in any way. And it is essential to verify the integrity of the image. This step is very important. After arriving at a crime scene, we have to make sure that we have to take some information to ensure that the integrity of the evidence is not altered. For that, we need a special purpose software, and that software is available freely, and there are some algorithms for ensuring the integrity of the evidence. We'll see into it. Okay, and there are various acquisition strategies. The first one is the backup files. We are all familiar with the backup files. It's very easy. And the least preferred method, we can collect the files that are backed up by the dedicated backup software, or if you are using Outlook, the PST file, the email file, or if you are using the Apple iTunes backup, and so those are the backup files. It is one of the easiest methods, and it is one of the least preferred methods. And if there is no other way, then only we will be moving on to this backup kind of method. And then comes the second one, logical acquisition. In logical acquisition, a copy of the file system is created. It may be a zip it may be in tarball or in gzip or a zip format. And the good thing about this logical acquisition is that it preserves the date and time stamps. So that's the second way. And I'm not giving priority to these two methods, but because the most important and preferred way of collecting evidence is the physical acquisition. Okay, it creates an exact replica of the storage medium. That means a bit by bit copy. And the advantage is that if you are using this physical acquisition method, it can recover deleted data. This is very important. It can recover deleted data, and it requires specialized analysis tools and techniques. And sometimes the drive management software that's embedded in the chip. That means that software embedded in the chip means that's firmware that may be affecting the acquisition. So if that chip is damaged, it may be difficult to get the evidence completely. Okay. So before moving on to the acquisition part, let's see the components of a hard disk. Hard disk is still used, and even if you are having solid state memory, it is still one of the long preferred ways of long-term storage next to the magnetic tapes. So we are having, whenever we need a large amount of storage, we will always buy portable hard disk, and a portable hard disk of 2 TB, 4 TB and higher capacities are available. The hard disk has been in place for more than some 3 decades, but the technology of that hard disk has increased to accommodate the more storage. The storage density has been increased, but the core technology that's driving the drive electronics remains the same. So for every hard disk, there is a platter, there is a magnetic platter, there is a disk, and that disk is divided into tracks, and that tracks are further divided into clusters, and that clusters will contain the sectors. These are the 3 parameters that are necessary. Why we are learning all these things? Tracks, sectors, and clusters. So whenever that hard disk is going to fail, if a cluster or a sector is damaged and marked as a bad block, if we can calculate the specific address of this sector that is damaged, we can specify commands to skip that sector and have the data recovered. So whenever a hard disk is moving, and when it is moving over a bad block, it will try to access the bad block, and the system will hang. So if we can skip on that, we can read the other data, and if that may contain the essential evidence part. This is the structure of a hard disk. There is a rotating magnetic disk, and there is a head on it, and this disk is logically being divided into all these kinds of sectors and clusters, and there are dedicated tracks on that. Why I am saying all these things in a cyber forensics workshop? That may be a good question. Why are you saying all these kinds of theory? Why should we learn all these things? That is an important aspect to it. If only we know all these operations, then only we may be able to recover data from a damaged hard disk. So if we understand the basic working of a hard disk, you can recover a damaged hard disk. That means you can send 80 commands to this hard disk, and you can start the hard disk, you can stop the hard disk, you can move the head to and fro and all. So if only we understand all these things, though only then we can do all these things. Okay, so a hard disk is divided into clusters, and the clusters will contain the sectors. Usually a sector will contain how much information? 512 bytes. We can change that, but usually it is 512 bytes. Okay. Is there any doubt or any kind of thing in any kind of questions? Please free to express in the Discord channel. I'm having some questions in the Discord channel. I will come on to that. Okay. Then we will see what an ordinary file is. We always know what a file is. File is a collection of information written to a disk, and it is usually created in a application specific format. That means if I'm writing something on a notepad and if I'm saving it, usually it is saved as a text file. So let me save this file. Okay, I'll save it as workshop. Fine. Usually it will be saved as a txt file, and it occupies a fixed number of clusters. It will, whenever we are saving a file, it needs a storage space, and operating system always writes in clusters. That is very an important fact point. Operating system can always address a cluster, and whenever we are saving a large file, we will be saving that file in a one cluster, and if there is not enough space on the nearby tracks, that's the next part of the files will be saved in some other cluster, and when the file ends, there will be an end of file. This is how a file is saved on a hard disk. Okay, the file that we save has a logical file size. Okay, let me show you. I'll take a new notepad. Okay, I'll type in hello. How many bytes will it will take to save this file? Could you answer in the chat box? There are how many characters in hello? There are 5 characters in the word hello, and each character consumes 1 byte of memory. 1 byte of memory. So how much size will it take? Shall I save this file? Okay, let me save this file. Okay, let me save it. Okay, let me save it as hello. Okay, I'm overwriting that file, and let me show that file. Okay, there is a file called hello that I have saved onto the drive I. Okay, if I look into the properties, hope you could see the screen, or let me zoom it out. Okay, the size is 5 bytes, but you could see that the size on disk is 4 KB. That means 4096 bytes. Why is it happening? Why is it happening? Could anybody answer this? Whenever we save a file, actually the file is only 5 bytes in size, but it is consuming 4 kilobytes of storage space on the secondary memory. Let me show you. Okay, this is the size on disk. This is the actual logical file size. The first one is logical file size, and the size on disk is 4 kilobyte. Okay, if I write something more, it will consume more amount of memory. It is due to the one reason that the operating system writes only into a cluster. So whenever we are saving a file, operating system can write only to a complete cluster, even if the file is consuming only a part of the sector or a part of a cluster. An operating system can write only to a complete cluster. So that's why the physical file says that means amount of file space is space that's occupied by a file is in bytes. So there is a new term that we will be learning that's called the file slack. Because of this, we will be losing a lot of space lost in the rest of the architecture. Okay, let me show you a picture of the same. So actually only this much amount of space is consumed by the actual file, and the rest of the space is due to the operating system's way of writing only to clusters. So the rest of the space is called file slack, and it is having some forensic importance, and it is having very significant it is a very significant value to forensics, because sometimes a part of the file may be available at the slack space. Okay, let me show how a file, what happens when a file is written to a hard disk. Okay, so here I'll be here it is written hello world. Okay, consider our previous file as the hello world file, and in hello world there are 12 characters, so it will consume only 12 bytes of memory. So it will take only 12 bytes of storage as the logical size, but a hard disk that is having a cluster size of 4 kilobytes. So it has 8 sectors. So what happens is that the hard disk contains a cluster. It will, for saving a file, it needs to write it to a cluster. That cluster is having 4 kilobytes, and that's having 8 sectors. Our file only consumes only this much amount of space, but the rest of the part, this much part of the sector, needs to be filled. Actually, for filling that sector, what the operating system will do is that it will pull the nearest content from the RAM, random access memory, primary memory, and it will fill it with the content from the RAM. And then the rest of the space may contain the content from the previous file that was written over there. It may be there may be some old data. Old data may be available here. So if you are using a specific some specific forensic tools, we can extract content from this RAM slack and disk slack. Okay, I'll explain it with a simple example. Consider this as a hard disk. There is a file, and that file, the file name is file A. That it consumes 2 sectors, sector 1 and sector 2. Then the file A was deleted, so there is no sectors are marked as unallocated, and the content of that sectors are left as such. Only the sectors are marked as unallocated. So when a new file B comes, it consumes the first sector completely, but the second sector partially. So what happens is that the rest of the portion contains the content of file A, only the partial contents of the file A, and with adequate forensic tools, we will be able to reconstruct the files. So we are going to see how to reconstruct these kinds of files from slack spaces, and sometimes it may happen that the hard disk will also be having some hidden spaces as well. Okay, are we together? Do you have any doubts? Please express in the Discord channel. I hope everyone has completed downloading the essential software. And if you're having problems in downloading the large image file, you can download the simple small image that I have created. Let me show you. If you're on a slow connection, try downloading this small image, 100 MB image. These images are heavy. It may take a while to complete the download. Okay. So what does these spaces contain? Sometimes these spaces contain, yeah, I'll show you. Remnants of older files, okay, and it may contain old data that was deleted but not overwritten it. Okay, if it is overwritten, we cannot recover, but sometimes it may contain a gold mine of information. That means sometimes the passwords and old directory structures. Directory structures will be helpful in identifying the storage nature of a criminal, and then we can try recovering files from that specific directories. And other miscellaneous information, sometimes maybe some stolen credit cards or something. In US, there has been a case where one person has hidden so much of child abuse material on a hard disk, and the metadata and the content from the Slack space help to bring him to the court of law. So these spaces are having an important relevance in disk forensics. Okay, I have shown you an image of the portable disk forensics workstation, digital forensic toolkit that includes all the essential tools for disk forensics. Usually these are the contents of the hard disk needs to be acquired. So we need additional portable hard disk to store the contents of the hard disk, and operating system with all patches. We should be having the operating system with all the patches. If it is Windows, it's okay. If it is Linux, it should be having all the patches. Whatever be the operating system, it should be having all the patches and reliable software tools. That means we have seen that we should be running our own trusted toolkit. The important thing is that never trust the software on the criminal system. He may have altered the binaries. He may have altered the names. So if you're running a dir command, it may format the hard disk, or it may override the files or something. And sometimes we need dedicated hardware for reading some special kind of hard disks. Especially if it is a server computer, it may be having a SCSI kind of interface. There may be different kinds of interfaces. There is a question regarding to that. I will answer that. Then we need an evidence container. Then we need storage media for storing the evidence. Digital camera is essential. And why a digital camera is essential? We do have mobile phones with good cameras and all. It is very important from a forensic perspective to have a digital camera without an internet connection, because we cannot afford to a chance by hacking or any other exploitation. And gloves. We should always protect the conventional forensic people. So if there are any fingerprints or something, we should not spoil it at the cost of collecting digital evidence. We should always respect the conventional forensics, because fingerprints, once lost, it will be lost forever. So we should be wearing the gloves. Okay, and the cardinal rules as well. We should never mishandle the evidence that we are familiar with. Never work on original digital evidence. We should always make a forensically sound copy of the digital evidence. Never trust the subject's operating system, and document everything. Whatever actions that we do, we should document it. And how we are going to do all these things? It's better to use a live CD or DVD to boot from it. And don't store anything on a suspect storage. We should not store anything on the suspect storage. And don't attach these workstations to any network. Network connections should be teared down. And whenever we are analyzing an evidence, we should use separate VMs for each case so that we can avoid any cross contamination. So if some evidence may be having some ransomware or something, maybe some malware. So if you are analyzing an evidence with a malware or a ransomware, and once the analysis part is complete, our workstation may get infected. So it is very important to have the workstation in a clean way. So it's the ideal way is to have the system reinstall each time, but it's very difficult. So it may be possible with the help of a VM to run each case in a separate VM so that they are not affected, they are not cross contaminated. Okay. To ensure that the evidence is not altered in any way, we can use a special kind of hardware. Okay. For forensic acquisition, the fundamental thing is to acquire the evidence. For acquiring evidence, the destination storage, the hard disk that we need to use should be greater than the source. Okay. There is one important thing. This is true only if you are cloning the hard disk. So if you are creating an image of the hard disk, we should always use a media that should be larger than the source hard disk. For an example, if you are using a source hard disk of 750 GB, we should need hard disk that is larger than 750 GB to image the drive. Usually, if a hard disk is 750 GB, the next available storage size is 1 TB. So if you are creating an image of the original hard disk of the 750 GB, we should use a hard disk that is larger than the hard disk. Only if you are creating a forensic clone. If you are using a clone, equal size will also do. Equal size is okay. So these are the two things that is important. You reinstall forensic platform each time. This is better said than done. So it will be so it's better to run those things in a VM. And the important thing is to use write blockers. And we will see what write blocker is. Write blocker. There are two kinds of write blockers. We will see the first type. First type is a hardware write blocker. The purpose of the write blocker is to prevent data from being written to the drive. So we are having a forensic workstation. We will be running a forensic tool to gather the evidence. So if you are connecting that forensic tool directly to the evidence drive, if there is a malware on this forensic workstation, it will alter the drive. There are so many things happening whenever we are plugging a hard disk to a forensic workstation. So we should ensure that the evidence drive is not altered in any other way. So we should use a specific hardware called write blocker that will block all the write operation. It will block all the write operation. So whenever we are connecting an evidence drive, maybe a pen drive or a hard disk, we should always connect it through a hardware write blocker. The forensic workstation may be having a USB port, so it's better to connect it to a USB 2.0 or 3.0 port. Okay. And the write blocker will be having attachment cables that we can use it to connect to an evidence drive. I'll show you an actual image of a write blocker and a hardware. Okay. This is the picture of a hard disk being connected to a write blocker. This is a Maxter hard disk that is connected to a Tableau write blocker. There are two connections to the hard disk. One is for the data line. The red cable is for the SATA data cable, and the other cable is for providing power to the hard disk, plus 5 volt and plus 12 volt. 12 volt and 5 volt supplies are needed for the hard disk. And this Tableau write blocker, this thing will be connected to a USB port of a system, our forensic workstation. So it will be connected using the USB. So this is how an evidence should be connected. This write blocker will be, this is a SATA kind of write blocker. There are specific write blockers for connecting USB pen drives and all. So we should always connect our hard disk or any other evidence drive to a write blocker. We can buy a write blocker online. Okay. One of them is Tableau. But all those people who are interested in learning about digital forensics and doing digital forensic research, they may not be able to afford a write blocker for the purpose of experimenting. Okay. This is a Tableau write blocker. Okay. This is the kind of write blocker that I have shown you. So what this write blocker does is that it just blocks the hard disk write channel from the computer. That means whenever we are writing a file to a hard disk, it will use the interrupt 13H. If anyone is interested in microcontrollers, microprocessors, and all system level programming, they might be knowing about all these things. The interrupt 13H is necessary for writing to a hard disk. So what this hardware do is that it will block the interrupt 13H. So nothing on the evidence drive will be changing, but we can read from the hard disk and we can collect the entire evidence. So what we will do is to implement a software write blocker. Okay. We are going to do a forensic acquisition by write blocking our USB port. There is an easy way. We can use the Windows registry to edit, and by that editing, we can write block the USB port. A word of caution: if you are write blocking the USB, make sure that you are disabling the write blocking part. Okay, whenever you are leaving the system, if you are attending this session on your office computer rather than your personal system, I would not suggest you to follow these steps. Let me explain the steps. Okay, go to the regedit. I know that there are some students in the session. They have informed me, so that's why I'm passing through these steps in a slow way. Okay, if you need to speed up, just let me know in the chat box. How to enable write protection using the Windows registry. The first step is to start the Windows registry. Windows registry is a hierarchical database of so many things on a Windows computer. Okay, for getting the registry, I'll show you. Okay, click on the start and then press on the Windows and run key, the alphabet R. You will be getting the run box. Type in regedit, registry edit, the short form of registry edit, regedit. Then you will be getting the Windows registry. There are so many keys and in the registry hives. Okay. You might be getting the registry in this fashion. Okay. What you should do is go to this specific path. Local machine, if it's a Windows 10 system, okay. Let me follow, please follow me. That means you have to go to the H key local machine. Let me share the path in the notepad so that you could view it much more easily. So you should go to this path on the registry, H key, local machine, system, current control set, and then control. You should go to this part. I'm going to this part, H key local machine. I'm going to the control and H key local machine, system, current control set, and then control. And then right click on the control folder key and select new and click on the key. And name the new key storage device policies. Shall I paste these steps in the chat window? Okay, I'll be pasting steps in the Discord channel. Okay. I'm pasting those steps into the Discord channel so that you could also follow. Please be careful while editing the registry. If you edit the wrong hive and if you delete any of those things, your system may not boot. So you have to be extra careful with it. And let me enable the write blocking. You have to make sure that you are at the exact hive, H key local machine, system, current control set. Then control, and then right click on it and create a new key. And that new key, storage device policies. Storage device policies. I may not be able to create the key because I do already have a similar key because that key has been existing on my system. So for you, you should create the storage device policies key, and inside that storage device policy, you have to create a new dword value. That dword value has to be like this, write protect. The case, it is case sensitive and there is no space in between write protect. So I have created a new dword value called write protect, and just double click on it. It will be having a value of 0 at right now. Okay, right now it is having a value of 0. So right now what I'm going to do is to insert a thumb drive to my system, and let me show you. Okay. So I have inserted a thumb drive. Right now you can see that I have inserted a thumb drive. This is a live Linux boot disk. Okay, let me copy a file to this thumb drive. Okay, I'm copying. I'm copying this a file to this thumb drive. You can see that the file got copied over here. Now I'm going to enable write protect. Okay. For enabling write protect, double click on that write protect and make the value as 1. Then click OK. I have changed the value of write protect as 1, and then I have closed it. Now let us see whether this is write protected. Let's see. We do have a hello file over here. Okay, we will try copying that file to this thumb drive. Would it work? I do want answers. Will it work? Could you please paste your answers in the chat box? I have enabled write blocking in the registry, and I'm going to paste a new file to this pen drive. Would it work? That's the question. Let me show you. I'm pasting it. That file got pasted. What happened? I have enabled write protect. Even then, the file got copied. Okay, this is what happened. We have, even if we are write protected, we have write protected in the write protecting enabled in the Windows registry. Here it is 1. There is one cardinal rule. We have to disconnect. If the thumb drive is already connected to the system, we have to disconnect it at first. Right now I have disconnected it. Now I have to insert it again. We have to be extra careful with it. Now let me try opening a file. Okay, our hello file. The hello file got opened. Okay, let's changing it. That's hello world. Okay, and I will try it, saving it. Now what has it shown? The media is write protected. Now the USB port is write protected. Only the hard disk and thumb drives that are connected to the USB port of this system is write protected. All the internal drives are read and write, and if any of the IEEE 13994 fireware port is being used, those things are still read or write. Only the USB port is write protected. This is one another way of making our system write protected. So each one of you who has made their system as write protected, please disable this feature You can double click on the registry and click on the 0 part. Okay. Then you can, now the USB port is not write protected. You have to, again, for this thing to work, you have to again disconnect and connect it. Okay. Okay. So the essential thing is that whenever we are doing a forensic acquisition, we have to write protect the drive. The ideal way of write protecting is to use a dedicated hardware write blocker. Only a hardware write blocker will be properly accepted in a court of law. So it is very important to connect a hardware write blocker. We should not be doing a forensic acquisition without a hardware write blocker. But for learning digital forensics, you can utilize this registry kind of technique, or there is an easy way using Windows group protect feature as well. So those things can be done. So these are the steps. So if you are using a Linux system, it is a little bit difficult, but it's possible. For that, you have to use a Linux write blocker. That's a kernel mode hack. You can get it from the GitHub link. Okay. Let's move along, and shall I show you the proper imaging process? Okay. For disk imaging, we should be using a dedicated software. Disk acquisition. We will be using a software FTK Imager Lite. This is a free software, not open source, but it is more convenient for Windows users to use FTK Imager Lite. So let me start that FTK Imager Lite. I have shared you the link of that FTK Imager Lite software, and with that software you can okay, this is the user interface of FTK Imager. It's a very easy software. You should you can use this to acquire the evidence. In the file menu, you can go to the create disk image part. Now we are going to image a pen drive. So you can select the physical drive, then click on next, and then we should select the proper device, source device. Okay, I'm going to image the 31 GB USB drive. Okay, hope the screen is visible for you. You have to select the proper device from the source, select the source drive selection window, then click on finish. Now it will ask for the location to save these files. So if you need to save the files in a hard disk, you have to specify it. Okay, and now there is an option that came. There are 4 options. One is the raw image file. Next is the smart format. The next is the E01 format. Next is the advanced forensic format. RAW or DD format is accepted by most of the cyber forensic software, but but it needs the exact amount of space as the original hard disk. But other type of AFF and E01 has compression features and so many with security and other additional features. But for maximum compatibility, you can use the RAW file format. Click on next. Then you have to type in the case number and all those things. You should be very careful that you have to type in correctly. Okay, I'm for the sake of demo, I'm filling it with random value, and we have to fill in the unique description and all those things. Okay. And now we have to select the image destination. You have to select a folder or a drive that is having enough free space. Okay. Okay. And then There is an option for fragmenting the file. So if you are using any old file system, or if you are using a pen drive that is being formatted with FAT32, you can use the fragmentation feature. Then you have to specify the file name. Okay, 31 GB Kingston. I am filling it up. Okay. Now I can click on finish, and then it will ask for one other option: verify images after they are created. We should always verify the images after they are created at a crime scene, but for the sake of saving time, I'm removing that. Then I'm clicking on the start. It will create an image. Okay. This process will take time, so I have created an image already well in advance so that I can show you. And I have given you an image, by the way, as well, so that you can analyze it. So the software to acquire the forensic image is Access Data FTK Imager. There are other Linux free software as well that are available on Linux that is also having all these features. For the sake of GUI, I have shown you this. We can use any software, any forensically good software, any good software to acquire the evidence in a forensically sound way. The one other forensic software is called GUImager, that is free and open source, that you can use to acquire evidence in a Linux system. GUImager, on a Linux system, this GUImager is fast and very fast compared. It is compared to other paid version softwares. It can be compared to. It is very fast compared to the old command line version of the tool. And from here you can download the GUImager software. So there we have seen an option to verify the image. So it is very important to validate the image so that we can ensure that the original forensic image is only the original forensic image is copied, and after that forensic copy process, nothing has been altered. For acquiring, we have used the FTK Imager Lite. For validating, most of the forensic softwares has the facility to validate the image. For validating the image, we are using cryptographic checksums. So what we do is to use the message digest MD5 128-bit kind of hashing. But in the recent days, after there has been some collisions in the MD5, the ideal way is to hash the file, the original forensic file, using the SHA-256. Before that, I will show you what hashing is. Hashing is a mathematical operation. It's very simple. So if you are giving an input to an cryptographic hash function, say SHA-1, it will give you a digest, a fixed length digest. And if you are giving another input, then you will be getting another digest. And if we are altering a single bit of the digest, look at the input. Instead of the over, we have replaced it with a U, but the change in the digest is huge. That means if we change a single bit in the input, the change in the digest is large. So if you are collecting an evidence, and if you are taking the digest of that evidence as a whole, the hard disk as a whole, and whenever we are doing the same mathematical operation to the hard disk again at a later point of time, if that is that value is same, we can say that the original evidence is unaltered. So here I have used the example of SHA-1 hash. So for those who have those people who have already downloaded the image, you can calculate the hash of the image that I have provided, so that you can make sure that the image is unaltered in any other way. So whenever you are using a software like FTK Imager to image a hard disk or a pen drive, it will create a report in the same folder. So here I have created a forensic image for sample purposes, and the forensic image is having the MD5 checksum value 75D, this much long string, and the SHA1 value this much long string. So whenever you are analyzing, whenever you are analyzing this evidence, the first step before analysis is to verify the evidence. So you can use a software called HashCalc. I have given you the link of that software. Let me start the software. Okay, the name of that, it is a small tool, HashCalc. With this, I can find out the hash value of the file that I have given you. I have given you an image file, sample image. Okay. Now, this software has the option of generating so many different kinds of algorithms, MD5, SHA1, and all. Now, let's generate the hash. Now it has calculated the hash, the MD5 hash. I will show you the MD5 hash. MD5 hash is this, and what else? The SHA1 hash is this. Shall we verify the hashes from the original report of the imaging software? Yeah, here I am copy pasting the results from the original imaging software. Are they aligned? Are they the same, one and the same? This is how a forensic image is verified at the cyber forensic lab. Once at the crime scene, when it is imaged, a hash value is generated by the acquisition software. Here in this case, as access data FTK imager. And whenever that file is being transported to the cyber forensic lab, after arriving at the lab, we will verify the hash value of the original file. Then if the hash value taken at the crime scene and if the hash value taken at the lab matches, then we can ensure that the original evidence is unaltered. Is there any doubt? Feel free to express in the Discord channel. Okay, I'll be answering those doubts that I have previously. Okay, there is a good question in the chat box. How to do imaging in data center environment when RAID configuration exists? Okay, that's a good question. Actually, why I'm saying that that's a good question. I hope everyone is familiar with the RAID configuration. RAID, redundant array of inexpensive disk. There are two configurations. Major popular configuration RAID 0 and RAID 1. Then RAID 5 configurations. Okay, I'm not going into the implementation details of all those things. There are two ways there where RAID can be implemented. It can be implemented in hardware as well as in software. So if the RAID is implemented in hardware, it is very essential to have the exact hardware RAID card that is to be available. And if it is implemented in software, nowadays the modern day forensic tools can acquire RAID array disk that are implemented in software. We can image the individual disk and recombine them, and we can get the original dynamic disk. But if they have implemented it in hardware, we should follow the exact kind of hardware configurations to acquire the disk. In those kinds of scenarios, this FTK imager can be used, and whenever we are acquiring the evidence, we have to choose file, create disk image, then we have to select the logical drive. Otherwise, the RAID array, a single partition may be spanning to multiple disks. So in that case, only a logical acquisition will give you a valid image that can be analyzed in a forensic software. Okay. So we have to select the logical acquisition part as well. Okay. I hope that answers the question. And the question from the same guy, how to extract data from disk encrypted devices like BitLocker. If you're acquiring a disk image from a BitLocker, log on to that Windows session that with the BitLocker encryption key and all. You can log on to that user account, run the access data FTK imager, create disk image, and you have to select the logical drive option. Then only it will be able to identify the content properly. Otherwise, it's very difficult. And some of the forensic softwares has the facility to insert the key and extract the encrypted content. But if the system is turned on, the best advice is to acquire the evidence using access data FTK imager or any other software that has the facility of acquiring the evidence in a logical way. Logical drive, okay, option. Okay, I hope that answers that question. Okay. So if there are any more questions, feel free to express them in the chat box on the Discord channel. Okay, let's move along and let's move on to the analysis part. Okay. So what I have done is that I have created 2 images, and I have created a single image for people who has lower internet connection speed, so that they could also follow the workshop. What I will do is that I will analyze the smaller image first using the software called Autopsy, and then I will move on to the larger image. Okay, are we together? Are we good? Okay, for forensic analysis purpose, we need to use a software. That software is called Autopsy. Actually, there has been a software called the Sleuth Kit, and Autopsy is a GUI for that Sleuth Kit. I'm starting the software Autopsy. It's loading. It will take a while to open. Meanwhile, I'll show you one another thing. I have told you, Windows has a place called Windows Registry, and we have edited some registry keys to make the USB drives write protect. So Windows Registry is a hierarchical database. It stores a lot of information about the Windows system, and that, for example, the type of hardware that we are having. And there is one more important information that is of forensic value: the list of USB devices that a system has ever been connected to. So once it happened to me that when I went to Bangalore to conduct a cyber forensic workshop at a famous university, my thumb drive got stolen. The same thumb drive that you are seeing on the screen right now got lost, and it was stolen. So what I did is that I have to file a complaint. I don't know the serial number of that pen drive. So what I used is that I used a software called USB Device View, which is a small software from Newsoft. It queries the Windows registry, and with which that software I can get the serial number of that thumb drive that I have already lost, because it is a hierarchical database, and because of that it has stored the serial number of that Kingston thumb drive. Okay, the same things, Kingston thumb drive. I'm showing you the serial number of my thumb drive. Okay, and it shows one another information, registry time. when it was connected to this system for the first time. I hope that is visible for you. When this system, when this thumb drive was connected to the system for the first time, and when was it last connected. So with this information, I filed a complaint to the administrative officer at that college, and then I thought that whoever who took the pen drive should have tried this thing at their computer lab. So what I did is that I ran the USB device software on their computer lab. I took the help of the students over there. They found the system that that particular person who took the pen drive has tested by inserting into the USB port. I got the exact time that he has accessed that thumb drive. Then what I did is that I noted the time, and then I have informed the security of that building, and they were having a surveillance camera. Then they have exactly identified the person who took the thumb drive, and I got the thumb drive back. So even a small registry value would be a key clue to a crime, and we could get, and I got my thumb drive back. Okay, so the possibilities are endless. So you should always try this software, USB device view, and the place where this software, all this information is stored is called Windows registry. What I told you about all these things is that whenever we are acquiring an evidence and whenever we are analyzing it, we can analyze registry to yield all these kinds of essential evidence. Okay, let me try. I'm going to issue a case name. Okay, maybe 201. Okay, it's going to say my base directory. I have to give the directory. I've given my directory, and then case number has to be a valid case number, ideally 2021 February. It has to be consistent, and if a person, if at a forensic lab, you have to be consistent. You have to put in notes, 100 MB image. I'm giving a small image, and I'm clicking on finish. Okay, then it is creating a case database. Okay. Now it is asking for the disk image that we have already created using the FTK Imager software. My time zone is GMT plus 5:30, and I have to point that disk image. Okay, I'm giving the sample image. Here there is an option for sector size, and I am giving you it as auto detect. Here I can give the MD5 hash value if needed for the documentation purpose. It is optional, so for the sake of saving time, I'm clicking on next. Now comes the interesting part. This autopsy is having so many ingest modules. So if we want to look at a particular kind of information, we can explicitly select those specific types. So if it is an operating system drive, and if we want to extract web browsing data and all other recent activity, user activity, etc., you can give a tick over that. If you want to identify the file type, you can check this thing. Then there is one other interesting thing: extension mismatch detector. Extension mismatch detector means some people will rename the file for the sake of hiding them. Sometimes somebody may hide a JPG file as a doc file. They will simply rename it. With this ingest module, this thing, we can identify those kinds of mismatches. And embedded file extractors, that means if you are embedding files inside PowerPoint presentations, documents and all, we can extract files from that. Picture analysis, general analysis of pictures, and there is a dedicated purpose for it. It can extract metadata content. That means data about data. I will show you when the ingest module is running. Then we can search for some specific email address and all. Now, right now we are going to analyze emails only. Okay, there is an email parser. Please select only the essential things that are necessary. It will make all the things much, much faster. Okay, now I'm clicking on next. Now it is being analyzed. By the time we will see what metadata is. We all know that metadata is data about data, but what is the purpose of it? What could you infer from this picture? It is taken at a beach. Okay. There is a lot more information to this digital information. This is the EXI of data. EXI of data. It shows the manufacturer of the phone and the capturing parameters, image capturing parameters. More than that, it contains a lot of other information, something like a geo information. Metadata is of very importance in a case because in this happened in US. He's a serial killer. He started his serial killing in the 1970s. Then he stopped for a while and there was no clue about him. But after a point of time, he sent a file to a TV channel. Okay. Police found the metadata embedded in a deleted Microsoft Word document. And in that metadata, it was written that last edited by Dennis. He was caught and then he's put into prison only with the help of clue from this metadata. You can read about this, the entire story about the Dennis Rader story on the Wikipedia. It's a very interesting case study. So let's see what all metadata has our autopsy has extracted. This is the interface of autopsy. If I'm clicking on the image, it shows the complete hex dump of the image. This is a small image. That's why it has loaded much sooner. Here, there is an option for viewing the metadata. This partition contains deleted files, and if you're clicking on that, you can view the file metadata and the image itself. Okay. I hope the image is visible for you. Why this content is important in an investigation? So if you are getting a thumb drive or if you are seizing a mobile phone with a lot of images, if you want to identify the places where this person has been, there is an option called geolocation in autopsy. Click on this thing. It will show all the places. It will extract the EXIF info and it will identify the places where this person has been to. So I have been to Kasargod. I have been to this another photo that I have included in the image is from Kunur. Okay. The other one is from Chennai. Okay. So this is very important in an investigation. So I have shared this image. Try out it for yourself, and then if you have any doubts, just let me know. And let me know the type of let me know the mobile phones that I have been using. Okay, I am not showing it in the presentation. Okay, you can get the text extracted from the images. There is a lot of information embedded in the JPG picture. Okay, just let me know in the Discord channel which all were my phones in those days. Okay, and the important thing is that it shows the latitude and longitude and the device model along with the results. Okay, try it for yourself. Okay, and let me close this case and let me open an interesting case. Okay, the image that I have shared with you contains, okay, these are the next images that I am going to analyze. Digital corpus. Okay, you can download these. You need to download both the files. Both are in NK's imaging format. It is supported by autopsy. Okay, I have analyzed the image previously before the session, as it takes a lot of time to run all the modules. Okay, so I will open the already existing case. So it took a lot of time to analyze this much amount of information. I have recorded a video, I suppose. Let me see. When I ran the software, okay, please look at the time on this video. That's 7:55 a.m. I hope this is visible. Okay, I started analysis at 7:55 a.m. Okay, I created a new case. I have given the new case information. I'm skipping that part for the sake of saving time. Then I have selected almost all the options because the sample image contains an operating system and it contains web browser history. So if we want to extract all the information, you need to run the ingest modules. There is a facility for virtual machine extractor. So if there is a virtual machine image inside that that forensic image, it will extract that virtual machine image as well. So I have, okay, let me show you. Okay, it started analyzing the evidence. I started the process at 7:56 a.m. Then by 8:04 a.m. it has analyzed up to only 7% because it is having a lot of activities. It is analyzing so much of the registry files and all. Now it is analyzing the browsing history. So after some 59 minutes, it has analyzed and it has given a lot of information. Let me share some of the information. This is the case, and I have saved the case for the sake of saving time. What all things it has detected? Extension mismatch detected. That means on this computer, somebody has hidden a file using the rename option. So if the original type is MS Office file, but he has renamed it as drmv2.lic. Hope the screen is visible for all of you. And you can right click on it. If you want to extract the file, click on extract the file, and you can export it to the desktop. Okay, let me try to save it as a doc. Okay, the ingest module has detected it as a doc format. Okay, let's try. File is extracted. Let me try opening that file. By the way, there is one important thing. Whenever you are opening an extracted file, it is essential to make sure that it is not virus affected. Go to virustotal.com, and upload the file over there to make sure that it is not virus affected. You can upload the file over there and then verify that this is not virus affected. By the way, the second image that I have given you may have a malware, but your antivirus will definitely flag it and you can remove it. It won't be a problem as long as it is inside the forensic image. But once it gets extracted, it is dangerous. So we should be always cautious when dealing with systems that are infected with ransomware. Okay. And then what all information else it shows? It shows the list of images inside this forensic image. Some may be deleted, extension mismatches, and then it will show the list of software that is installed on this system. Okay, that means Adobe Flash Player, Trophy Flash. What we are looking on is that if that person is hiding something, he may be using onion routing. Maybe we are looking for the traces of Tor. Then the operating system information, it shows. At first, it shows only the basic Windows NT kernel x86 architecture, okay, 32-bit. But on further detail, it shows that it's using Microsoft Windows XP Service Pack 3, okay, and it shows the list of user accounts by SAM file. And with each evidence, it shows from where it got this information. Source file path is also included. And the recent document is very important. So if it is in some fake document or some kind of thing, it has to be inspected. Now this thing, yeah, my antivirus has been triggered because I have clicked on that temp.lnk. Okay, I'm stopping the antivirus scan. So it is very important to have a good antivirus. And if you're suspecting ransomware, it is better to run autopsy on a Linux system, so it won't be affecting your investigation. And it shows the run programs. Then Windows shellback, lot of information, and the list of USB devices attached. Okay, so you can get the list name of that thumb drive that he has been using on this computer. So if he's hiding that evidence, you can ask for it. So, and if you're searching for evidence in multiple drives, if there are so many hundreds of drives or something, you can search the specific drive. Okay. And you can get the web bookmarks. This is SQLite. That means that's from Mozilla. Okay. SQLites. Then web cookies, the cookies and the websites that he has visited, including the timestamp, and the web downloads. So what all things he has downloaded. Then the web history, it is scoring the web history. I suppose we are running out of time. So let me know if there are any doubts in the Discord. Yeah, as per my understanding, only logical imaging is possible in RAID environment. Then it won't capture deleted files. How to face this problem? Okay. There are some challenges, of course. There are some challenges in forensic acquisition process. Something is better than nothing. That's why we were always relying on the physical acquisition process is the ideal method. But if it is not possible, then the logical acquisition methods and by extracting the contents of log files and all, and the timestamps, we can try to reconstruct the events. And if nothing is, if that is not possible, we can rely on the backup files. Okay. So it will also give the results of the Google image search and all other web activities. And if there are email accounts and Outlook accounts on the in that image, it will also extract those kinds of information as well. So this autopsy is a wonderful tool, and there are many ingest modules. Those are customizable. You can write your own ingest module in Java or in Python. Nowadays it supports Python as well. So if any of you are interested, please do feel free to contribute to this open source project, so that it's helpful for many, and it is a wonderful way to learn things. By the way, oh, anti-forensics. Okay. There are so many anti-forensic methods, but we will be relying on multiple image sources, multiple sources. If you are carefully analyzing, we can identify that if there is any chance of anti-forensic softwares. For example, if you are looking at the list of installed softwares itself on this image, that's a good question. Thank you. we can check with the program name if any anti-forensic software has been already been installed in this. And if any anti-forensic software has been installed, we should be cautious with the kind of evidence that we gather from this device. And sometimes even some of the best anti-forensic softwares, they won't be able to remove some logs, access time logs or some logs. So we'll be getting evidence from some other places. So we should be cautious in accepting the evidence from a system that's having anti-forensic software. Yeah, that's a good question. Where to find some image files to analyze for such study purpose? I will share the link on this channel, okay, after the event. I tried with the images. I tried for images with lower size. Then I had some difficulty. That's why I have created an image for myself for the session. That's why I have shared that link on the Google Drive, okay, this 100 MB image that I have created myself. So don't wait for any sample images. Create it for yourself. Then you can learn the things as well. For doing CTF kind of things, you can download sample images from the internet. There are so many sources. I'll post the links on the Discord channel. And if there are any more doubts, feel free to contact me. And I'm available on Twitter, LinkedIn, and Telegram. And by the way, I do have a website called vipinonline.com. My email address is Victor Uniform 3 Yankee Victor Golf at gmail.com. Let me share that email address. Okay. So if there are any comments or feedbacks or something, please let me know. If there are any doubts, I'll be glad to answer them. Hope the session has been useful for you, and it may make you interested in digital forensics. And thank you, Cyberdome Kozhikode team, for inviting me, and I'm thankful for my superior officers and colleagues who has contributed much to my knowledge, and they inspired me to learn new things and learn how to recover data from a damaged hard disk and all. Oh, there is a good question in the chat box. What if the cybercrime was done through a VM? Is it traceable? That's a good question. It is also traceable. We cannot absolutely say yes or no, but we can try. That's why Autopsy is also having an ingest module for analyzing virtual machines, and it is improving much. It is improving. Whenever we are ingesting a disk image, it shows. Okay, let me. Okay. It shows virtual machine extractor. It's possible to extract. It's possible. We can try it. Okay. May not be always be successful, but keep on trying. Thank you. And by the way, there is one more thing. Even if we are not able to extract the evidence right now, it's better to keep the original evidence as such. And maybe in the near future, somebody may write a new plugin, and we may be able to analyze that image in a new perspective. Something that happened with the old photographic plates. I hope you might have heard about old photographic plates stored in Germany and all. In those days, the pictures developed were not much clearer. But nowadays, with modern hardware, computer-based optical methods, those images can be enhanced. So the collection process has to be much precise. We always have to collect the evidence in a forensically sound manner. Thank you. And I would like to have the feedback on the Discord session. If there are any doubts, feel free to contact me. Thank you. Thank you once again.